Is Sanji a trash character deserving of all the hate, or is he an underrated star? We're going to find out by taking a look at his best and worst moments together and see whether or not this womanizing cook is deserving of the title Wings of the Pirate King. Sanji has always been a divisive character amongst the community. Not only is he pitted against Zoro in the never-ending power scaling between the two, but his character quirk, flaw, gag is not received too well by Western audiences, just like Brooks. This gag being his perverted obsession with all things lady-related. In a country that has embraced feminism, went through the Me Too movement, and that caricatures men like Sanji's as simps that need to touch grass, he really isn't playing on an equal field when it comes to popularity. Take his rival Zoro, for example. Watching the green-haired man get impossibly lost following simple directions and ending up in places he shouldn't have been able to is still one of the funniest gags in One Piece. It is so popular that it seeps into other anime communities through prevalent memes. It's funny browsing Reddit and then pop, there's Zoro. But with Sanji, it's just not funny, really at all. It just makes Sanji do annoying or inconvenient things at the expense of others. One particular controversial incident is when it was made into an actual plot point when he almost died from blood loss upon seeing mermaids. In retrospect, I find this actually kind of hilarious, but I know that's far from a consensus. So just based on public reception, Sanji's looking less and less like a top tier and more like a character you're supposed to dislike. But is this a premature assessment? Well, let's look at some of his most notable achievements, as well as failures in timeline order. Sanji's first appearance showcases one of his greatest strengths, his sacrificial compassion. Due to suffering the horrors of severe starvation himself, he will always feed someone in need, even if they are an enemy pirate like Jin. This is not just a personality trait for Sanji, it is a core principle in which he will never break. And that starts to become evident with the chain-smoking cook. He's both bound and elevated due to his unshaken adherence to his own personal creed. Never hit a woman. Never use your hands to fight. Never refuse to feed someone. Yes, they are technically limitations, but they elevate him as a truly kind man. Mr. Prince. In Alabasta Saga, Sanji actually has a lot of W's under his belt, particularly his cunning use of the Mr. Prince alias to mislead an enemy and save his allies from certain death. Fast forwarding to the crew's capture, it was also Sanji that saved them from certain death from banana gators and drowning. So far, so good. Next, we go up. In Skypiea, Sanji had his nothing happened in a sense. When Usopp was at the mercy of one of the most powerful enemies pre-time skip and was certainly going to die, Sanji took his place and saved the Sniper King. Burnt to a crisp yet steadfast in his resolve. I find it a fitting comparison to Zoro's Nothing Happened. Both were moments in which a Straw Hat willingly took what would have killed another onto themselves. Zoro's moment highlighted his unshakable determination to protect his captain, for if his captain were to fall, his dream would be shattered along with it. But for Sanji, it's not about loyalty to the captain, but compassion for the weak and defenseless that led him to sacrifice himself. Both moments reveal the true heart behind the right and left hand of Luffy. But what is this compassionate cook's response when there is an intense inner conflict amongst the group he loves and protects? During Water 7, it was Sanji who tried to mediate the conflict between Usopp and Luffy over replacing the Going Merry. He even went as far as to seriously strike Luffy to prevent the fledgling captain from kicking Usopp out of the crew in the heat of the moment. Sanji was also the first one to board the sea train, full of government officials and CP9 agents, on a solo mission to rescue Robin. It is abundantly clear that he prioritizes the protection of others generally above all else. And though he didn't succeed in preventing Robin from reaching Enies Lobby, he still gets the MVP award for Water 7. Wow, we're so many arcs in and not a single major L in sight. Maybe the hate is just not justified. Oh. Here is Sanji becoming victim to his chivalrous code in a seriously negative way. Not only does him losing to Soap make him look weak and pathetic, but it also actively hurts his crew. Robin's life is literally on the line and Sanji is wasting time getting washed instead of doing something productive. It just wasn't a good look. But all is forgiven because due to his quick thinking behind the scenes, Sanji opens the gates of justice, ruining an almighty Buster Call and saving the entire crew yet again. So he breaks even for Enies Lobby. If Enies Lobby revealed how Sanji's chivalry can be a hindrance, Thriller Bark showed how his perviness can stray from irritating into gross. The similarities between him and Absalom, one of the worst characters in One Piece, is a characterization L. Though I personally don't find it funny, you can work with Sanji's obsession with women in a better way than making it go full criminal. Take his interactions with Pudding, for example. His weakness for women in that arc actually brought about amazing moments. But here in Thriller Bark, it's a bust. Luckily, he redeems himself at the end when he offers to take Luffy's place just like Zoro, and though he wasn't allowed to, the sentiment shows yet again his heart is always willing to protect others, even if he will die. Though that was a brief summary of hundreds of episodes, I think it's enough of a sample size to conclude that pre-time skip Sanji was actually one of the best characters. He was competent, reliable in seemingly impossible situations, well characterized with flaws, and shown to be the heart of the Straw Hats. Let's go to the New World and see if he keeps it up. I think this is a span of time in which the majority of Sanji hate is birthed. Generally considered the weakest part of the series besides East Blue, Fishman Island and Punk Hazard were not kind to Sanji. In fact, I would say it's easily his lowest point of representation, and he basically becomes a flanderization of his flaws. Since his return to the crew after 2 years, Sanji's sheer infatuation with women turned from his chivalrous creed leaning gag into him looking like an idiot all the time. The fact that he almost died from blood loss is truly his most pathetic moment. Maybe his worst L, though that's debatable. And then during Punk Hazard when he body swapped with Nami, it's just not cool at all. The utter lack of respect for his crewmate and a woman in general means Sanji's lust had overtaken his compassion and respect, which is a character regression, plain and simple. And the L's keep rolling when once again his lust leads him to be manipulated and, even if it was a gag, contemplating leaving the crew. This is inexcusable. Far from the MVP of Water 7, he is only slightly redeemed by briefly protecting the weak members of the crew from Doflamingo, which is great, but it pales in comparison to the 3 arcs of consecutive fails and character regression. I think Oda must have finally realized how butchered Sanji's character was becoming, and so the beloved Whole Cake Island arc comes in to redeem the wings of the Pirate King. But it isn't about transforming him into something new. No. The arc is all about getting to the core of who Sanji has always been. This could be an entire video in itself, so I'll just hit some major points. It showed the lengths he will go to protect his deserving found family, as well as his undeserving biological family. It showed his sacrificial nature, not wanting to put his crew at risk even though he will lose everything he loves. It showed us his backstory, how he protects the weak because he knows exactly what it is like to be abused and abandoned by family for being defective. He tries to honor women because they were the only ones that treated him with kindness when he was a Vinsmoke. Notably, Sanji did not have any major fights throughout an arc dedicated to him, and this is to make it clear, he is primarily a lover and a protector, not a fighter. This is communicated through the climax of his role in the arc being that of cooking a wedding cake alongside pudding. An enemy moved to a change of heart by his compassion and chivalry. To wrap up the arcs, Wano is pretty good for Vinsmoke Sanji. Soba Mask shenanigans were awesome and helpful to others. Saving Momo, defeating Queen after dealing with the pain of his past and the potential consequences of how his bloodline might affect him. All great moments. Two questionable moments come to mind though. Him peeking the bathhouse, which kinda isn't a big deal because it was mixed bathing, and one is his capture by Black Maria and subsequent calling for Robin for help. Now yes, it is annoying how someone as strong as Sanji can get captured and waste valuable time once again by a weaker combatant that just so happens to be a woman, like with Khalifa and Enies Lobby. But I consider the situation overall positively, because it allowed Sanji to prove what he learned on Whole Cake, that he can rely on others to cover up his so-called weaknesses without having to sacrifice himself or his code of honor, which makes him as great as he is. So is Sanji great or trash? Sanji is, in my opinion, one of the best characters in One Piece. He is well characterized. We know his motivations, what caused them, what challenges them, why they are so important. And although for a few arcs it was becoming irritating, we know his flaws and how they actually work to elevate the character had he not had them. We've seen him overcome horrific trials, suffer loss, make mistakes, change other characters for the better. He is essential to the plot, to the Straw Hats as a whole. Luffy's word was absolutely true. Without you, I cannot become the Pirate King. This is because Sanji, as a cook, is closely tied to One Piece's themes. Food, or sharing a meal, is what brings people from all backgrounds together. It bridges the gap of social or racial differences. It brings cheer and laughter. I don't think it should be surprising that similarly to Luffy, Sanji seems to make allies out of enemies wherever he goes. Jin, Bon Clay, Duval, Kinemon, G5, Viola, Peckham's, Bage, Pudding, Germa. The path to a man's heart is through his stomach, they say, and it's because it's true. Cooking food and sharing a meal is fundamental to how humanity has shown their love since the beginning. Food is symbolic of freedom. Sanji is a living embodiment of these themes Oda has written throughout all of One Piece. He is the shield that protects his friends. He is the heart that brings them together. And he is the wings to deliver them to their dreams. Sanji is without a doubt great.
そいつが何だというのだ、麦わらのルフィ。サンジはジェルマの失敗作だ。皮膚もさせとならず、飯炊きに従事し、王家のプライドもない。つまらぬ情に流され、弱者のために命を危険にさらすような 脆弱な精神。兵士としてあまりに不完全な出来損ないがその男だ。びっくりした。なんであいつ急にお前のいいとこ全部言ったんだ。そういう意味で言ってねえだろあいつは。最高じゃなお前たち。